conventional thinking, Kayash and her classmates created a model of the nitrogen cycle. The diagram is shown below. What is the function of the bacteria shown in the model? They prevent the nitrogen from harming the plants. They remove the nitrogen from the soil. They remove the oxygen from the soil, or they return the nitrogen to the system. What do you think? So the answer is they return the nitrogen to the system. Which of the following is not true about systems that cycle matter? Living things play a role in the cycling of matter. Matter changes from as it cycles. Some matter is destroyed as it cycles through the environment, or matter is constantly recycling through the environment. What do you think? So the answer is some matter is destroyed as it cycles through the environment. Explain the role of living things such as yourself in the nitrogen cycle. How do you compute on the nitrogen cycle? What do you think? So animals like myself eat plants that uptake nitrogen. When animals decompose, nitrogen is released to the soil. Describe how you are involved in both the carbon and oxygen cycles. When I breathe in, I'm removing oxygen from the air, and when I exhale, I'm putting carbon dioxide into the atmosphere.
We teach you the cycles that are necessary for life. Let's start out with the water cycle, the most easiest to understand. We have precipitation, or rain, and rain returns water to the earth, and it can run off here into the soil, percolate into groundwater. It can run into rivers and oceans. And it returns in two very important ways. Transpiration, water can move through plants. Also, the sun can heat up water and change it into a gas. Now we have evaporated water in the atmosphere. It cools and condenses, and precipitation occurs again. In our second cycle, a more difficult cycle to understand, the carbon cycle. Carbon can be trapped in the system in many different places. For example, you'll find carbon in the plants and the animals. You'll find it trapped in fossil fuels, the remnants of once living things. Also in sediments and in the ocean. When it returns and starts the cycle, it can return to the atmosphere in several different ways. One, we can burn these fossil fuels. Also, if the level is higher here and lower here, diffusion can occur, and carbon can move from a higher to a lower concentration. And as things die or decompose, they can be returned to the atmosphere as well. Our interaction here becomes one of the most important between photosynthesis and cellular respiration. We have 6 molecules of carbon dioxide plus 6 molecules of water. And then, with the help of chloroplasts that have a green pigment chlorophyll, we get C6, H12, O6, which is sugar, and 6 molecules of oxygen. Now this is really important because respiration ends up being the exact opposite. We get, going in, animals or plants have made sugar, and we breathe in oxygen. And the products are 6 molecules of carbon dioxide and 6 molecules of water. And very importantly, we also have energy. Notice how these two reactions